welcome to another class of process heat transfer. In this lecture, I will be mainly discussing about the boiling processes and the condensation processes. This lecture is going to be very useful and you will see some correlations, and that will be useful for the designing of heat exchangers. The main objectives of this lecture will be the differentiate between the evaporation and the boiling process, and you will see some different types of boiling processes, and we will thoroughly discuss the boiling curve and the different boiling regimes and the heat transfer, heat flux or the convective heat flux which are associated with the different boiling regimes such as nucleate boiling and the film boiling. And we will also see that the different methods for the enhancement of heat transfer, and then we will develop our relationship. In fact, we will try to see that whether we can develop and or ultimately we will just jump to the final relationship for the heat transfer coefficient in the laminar film condensation over a vertical plate. Then we will see the heat flux which are associated with the condensation process over different geometries such as horizontal plate, vertical plate, and the horizontal cylinder spheres and tube bundles. And we will also see few numerical problems in order to understand the boiling and the condensation process and the implementation of their correlations that we will see in this lecture. We will also see that the drop-wise condensation and the understanding of the uncertainties which are associated with the drop-wise condensation process. So here is the topic, which is the boiling heat transfer. So we have many engineering applications which involves the condensation and the boiling heat transfer. So let us take the few examples, the daily examples, such as the household refrigerator. In the household refrigerator, the refrigerant absorbs the heat from the refrigerated space by boiling in the evaporator section and rejects the heat to the kitchen air by condensing in the condenser section. The condenser sections are basically the long coil tubes which are actually behind the refrigerator. So in another example, that in the steam power plant, the heat is transferred to the steam in the boiler where the water is being vaporized and the waste heat is rejected from the steam in the condenser where the steam is condensed. Some electrical components are also being cooled by the boiling by immersing them in a fluid with the appropriate boiling temperature. So these were the few examples that the daily example that we encountered. So in this topic, I will mainly discuss about the evaporation process. So what is evaporation? So we will see that the evaporation and the boiling process in this slide. So keep in mind that the evaporation is always the vapor-liquid interface. Evaporation always takes place at the vapor-liquid interface phenomena. So this is the kind of the example of the evaporation process. This is the hot water which is at 20 degrees centigrade, and this is air. So evaporation will always take place at the interface of this liquid and the air. So evaporation will always be at the interface of the vapors and the liquid. So vapors are above the liquid and this is the liquid. So the high energy molecules will come out at the surface and will leave the surface because of high kinetic energy. So you have already studied about the evaporation process. So when will the evaporation takes place? So here is the definition, that when the vapor pressure is less than the saturation pressure of the liquid at any given temperature. So that is the point where the evaporation takes place. So it is always at the vapor liquid interface. So this is the example of the evaporation process. Whereas in case of boiling, So boiling is always occurs at the solid liquid interface. So for example, this is for example a kettle. So boiling is always occur at this interface. So the interface is, this is the solid base of this kettle and this is the liquid inside the kettle. So if we provide the heat from the bottom, so the boiling phenomena will take place at the bottom, and the vapors or the bubbles which are converted at the bottom due to by taking the heat from the bottom will move upward, and we will see that the kinds of or the steps of the boiling in the upcoming slide. So boiling occurs always at the solid liquid interface. So when will boiling will occur? When the liquid is brought into contact with a surface maintained at the temperature which is sufficiently above or sufficiently high the saturation temperature of the liquid. So what is the saturation temperature? So at which the water boils, right? So here is an example that, so this is the boiling phenomena of a liquid in which this is the heating rod or the heating element, right? And if the saturation temperature of the water is 100 degrees centigrade, always remember that saturation temperature of any liquid sample will be the function of the pressure. So if the pressure is 1 atm, so the saturation temperature of the water is the 100 degrees centigrade. So water is actually boils at this temperature. So how the boiling will take place, and if we heat this rod, and this is called the heating element, and if the temperature of this heating rod or the heating element will be sufficiently high than the saturation temperature of the water, so what will happen? The boiling will take place at the interface of this heating element, right? So this is the kind of the boiling process. And when the boiling process will occur? When we bring a surface into the liquid that will have a temperature sufficiently high than the saturation temperature of the liquid. So this is all about the boiling process. So from this diagram we will try to develop an expression that is called delta T. So the difference between this heating element, difference between the temperature of this heating element and the saturated water is called delta T, and sometimes it is also called the delta T excess, right? So in the next slide we will see that. So the boiling heat flux from a solid surface to the liquid is given by this expression. This is the heat flux, and it is simply the same relationship that is the Newton's law of cooling, that the boiling heat transfer flux or the boiling heat flux, which is the convective heat transfer coefficient. This is the surface temperature of the heating element, and this is the saturated temperature of the water, and the difference between these two is called delta T excess, and sometimes it is called excess temperature. So this delta T excess has great importance when we discuss the relationship between this boiling heat flux and the delta T excess. We will study the boiling curve in the upcoming slide, and we will try to develop the relationship between these two quantities, the boiling heat flux and the delta T excess. So the next is the classification. So the boiling is actually classified into two broad categories. The one is known as the pool boiling, right? And the second one is known as the flow boiling. So what is the pool boiling? This is a kind of example of the pool boiling. So if there is the absence of any bulk fluid flow, right, and if there is a fluid in this pan, and there is no bulk fluid motion, although there is the fluid motion inside this pan because of the heat which we are providing, that because the high energy molecules will transfer from the high temperature region to the low temperature region, there will be the movement of the molecules of this liquid, but there will be no bulk fluid motion. So this kind of phenomena is called the pool boiling. So any motion of the fluid is due to the natural convection currents and the motion of the bubbles under the influence of buoyancy force, which is called the process known as the pool boiling. In the opposite, the second category is the flow boiling. So what is the flow boiling? As its name is the flow. So in this case, the flow boiling is the fluid is moving, and there is always the presence of the bulk fluid motion, and the fluid is moving at a particular speed, and the bulk fluid motion is basically aided or with the help of any external means, such as any pump is basically maybe attached at this place in order to move the fluid through this pipe. So if the fluid is moving in this pipe, right, and this movement or the bulk motion of the fluid in this pipe is because of the pump that we have added over here. So, and also we are providing the heat to this pipe, and there may be some boiling process inside this tube, and this kind of boiling is known as the flow boiling. Why it is known as flow boiling? Because boiling is taking place at the liquid solid surface interface, right, from this side and from this side, and there is also the bulk fluid motion. So that is why it is called the flow boiling. So here is the description that in the flow boiling, the fluid is forced to move in a heated pipe or over a surface by some external means such as pump. So these are the two classifications of the boiling. One is the pool boiling and the second is the flow boiling. So the next category is the subcooled boiling. So the subcooled boiling is when the temperature of the liquid body or the liquid inside this pan is sufficiently below the saturation temperature of this liquid. So if the saturation temperature of this liquid is 100, we know that because it is a function of pressure. If the pressure is 180 atm, obviously the saturation temperature of this liquid is 100. So if it is at 80 degrees centigrade, right, and this surface temperature is 107, right, so you will see that there are some liquid vapor bubbles that will be rising from bottom towards the surface, and if we see the temperature is below the saturation temperature of this liquid, so this kind of boiling will be known as the subcooled boiling. And in the opposite, if the temperature of the main body is equal to the saturation temperature of the water, so the saturation temperature of the water is 100, and this liquid which is present inside the pan is also the temperature of this liquid is also 100. So we say that this type of boiling is known as the saturated boiling. So here is the description that when the temperature of the liquid is equal to the saturation temperature, and this kind of boiling is known as the saturated boiling. The basic difference is if the temperature is less than the saturation temperature of the water, and the boiling at that point will be known as the subcooled boiling, and if the temperature is equal to the saturation temperature of the liquid inside the pan is called the saturated boiling. Another difference is at the subcooled boiling you will see less vapor bubbles in the liquid, and whereas in case of the saturated boiling you will see a lot of vapor bubbles with different sizes are migrating from bottom towards the top. Pool boiling. So let us just try to understand the pool boiling. In the pool boiling, as I have said earlier, that the fluid is not forced to flow by any external means such as pump. So it is mainly due to the natural convection currents and the motion of the bubbles under the influence of buoyancy force. So let us just try to understand the pool boiling process with the help of the boiling regimes and the boiling curve. So what are the boiling regimes and how can we classify them and how can we differentiate them into different regimes, right? So the main thing is on which we differentiate the boiling regimes is the delta T excess. And as I have said earlier in the previous slides, that the delta T excess is the difference between the saturation temperature, the surface temperature minus the saturation temperature. So these are the four different boiling regimes in the pool boiling, right? So the first one is the natural convection boiling. So how can we say that it is the natural convection boiling? We will say that based on this delta T excess, right? So how can we measure the delta T excess, the difference between the surface temperature and the saturation temperature? So this is 103 is the surface temperature and this is the saturation temperature. Saturation temperature in case of water will always be 100 at 1 atm pressure. So if the difference between the surface temperature and the saturation temperature is very small, that is from 2 to 5, right, or 1 to 5, so this boiling will be known as the natural convection boiling, right? So if the delta T excess, so if we take the difference between 103 minus 100, we will have delta T excess will be 3. So from this, the value of the delta T excess, we will say that this is the natural convection boiling, right? And in the second case, if the surface temperature is high and if we take the difference between this surface temperature and the saturation temperature, so we will have delta T excess will be equal to 10. So we can say that this kind of boiling will be known as the nucleate boiling. So the inside phenomena, what is taking place inside the bulk of the fluid, so we will also see that how the change in the delta T excess will affect the inside phenomena in the bulk of the fluid. So here we will just say that the natural convection currents because of the temperature difference, right? So here we are saying that there are some kind of bubbles which are moving from from bottom to the top in the nucleate boiling. So in the nucleate boiling, we will mainly differentiate it based on this delta T excess. We will also see that whether it is natural nucleate boiling or not in the upcoming slide, that what kind of phenomena will take place. So the third kind of boiling is known as the transition boiling. So there are some vapor pockets and we will actually see the right picture of the vapor pockets, that this is the transition boiling in the upcoming slide. So here we are just trying to understand that if the difference between the surface temperature and the saturation temperature is very high, up to 100 or up to 80 to 100, so this kind of boiling will be known as the transition boiling. Here the surface temperature is 180 and the saturation temperature is 100, so if we take the difference, the delta T excess will be 80. So we will see that, and we will also see that there are some vapor pockets over here at the bottom of this pan. We will say that this is the transition boiling. So the last and the fourth type of the boiling will be known as the film boiling. Why we say that this is the film boiling, I will explain it in the upcoming slide. But here we just have to observe that the difference between the surface temperature and the saturation temperature is very high. It is in hundreds. So here the difference is 300. So this kind of boiling will be known as the film boiling. Why we say it is the film boiling? Because there is the vapor film at the liquid solid interface, and this film is due to the very high temperature of the surface, and because of this vapor film, we say that this vapor is making some sort of film which is basically encapsulating or covering the heating surface. So this kind of Film is due to the presence of vapors and the solid surface, and we will say that this is kind of the film boiling. These are the four different kinds of boiling, and we will see that on the boiling curve. So this is a typical boiling curve. Here, this boiling curve, this is the pink color boiling curve, right? And it has been divided into four different regimes of the pool boiling that we have studied in the previous slide: the natural convection boiling, and the nucleate boiling, and the third is the transition boiling, and the fourth is the film boiling, right? So these are the same pictures that I have presented in the previous slide. So these are the four different regimes. This is one regime, this is the second regime, nucleate boiling, this is the third, transition boiling, and this is the film boiling. So let us just try to understand this boiling curve. So first we'll have to look at the x-axis, which is known as the delta T excess, which is the difference between the surface temperature and the saturation temperature. So if the difference between the surface temperature and the saturation temperature, or simply the delta T excess, is in between 1 to 5, so this kind of boiling will be known as the natural convection boiling. If the delta T excess is from 5 to 30, so this kind of boiling will be known as the nucleate boiling. If the difference is from 30 to 120 delta T excess, so this kind of boiling will be known as the transition boiling. So if the temperature is delta T excess is more than 120 degrees centigrade, so this will be known as the film boiling. So in the upcoming slide, I will just try to explain that the different kinds of the boiling and what is basically happening inside this bulk of the liquid as the delta T excess will increase. So this is actually the whole curve, which is the relationship between the delta T excess on x-axis and the boiling heat flux. The boiling heat flux is the rate of heat transfer per unit surface area of the heating element, right? So this is known as the boiling heat flux. So we will see that as we will see the relationship between the delta T excess, right, and the boiling heat flux. So we will see that how the boiling heat flux will change as we increase the delta T excess. So this is all about the boiling curve, the typical boiling curve. We will see that the individual regime of the boiling curve in the upcoming slide. So this is the first regime of the pool boiling on the boiling curve. Sorry. First of all, we will see that this boiling curve from this point to the point A. So this is the region where the natural convection boiling takes place, right? So in this boiling, the bubbles do not form on the heating surface until the liquid is being heated few degrees above the saturation temperature, such as from 2 to 6 degrees centigrade for water. So the water is mainly in the superheated state, which is a kind of the metastable state. And the fluid motion in this kind of boiling is actually explained by the natural convection currents. And the heat transfer from the solid surface to the liquid is actually given by the natural convection. So this natural convection boiling is taking place when the temperature of the delta T excess is in between the range of 1 to 5. So this is the second regime of the pool boiling, which is called the nucleate boiling. So actually on the boiling curve, we will try to understand that what will happen from point A to point C, right? And this kind of boiling is known as the nucleate boiling. The question is why we say that this is the nucleate boiling. So in this boiling regime, the bubbles are generated from the bottom. So bubbles are nucleated or formed or generated from the bottom. So this is the kind of the nucleation process. So this regime is known as the nucleate boiling. So let us just try to read the description. The bubbles which are formed at the increasing rate at an increasing number of nucleation sites. So the point or the region from where the bubbles are formed are called the nucleation sites as we move along the boiling curve towards the point C. So at this point there is no bubble at the bottom of the liquid, and when we move along this curve, the number of nucleation site and or you can say that the rate of bubble formation from the bottom or at the heating surface will go on increasing. Why this will happen? Because when we move along this curve, so what is going to happen, this delta T excess is increasing, right? So when we move along this curve from point A to point C, the delta T excess increases from 5 to 30 degrees centigrade. So this nucleate boiling is actually tells us that the formation of bubbles on the heating surface in the pool boiling process. So this nucleate boiling regime is further divided into two regimes, right? From point A to B and from point B to C. So from point A to B, the delta T excess is from 5 to 10 degrees centigrade. So from point or the region A to B, so the delta T excess is in between from 5 degrees centigrade to 10 degrees centigrade. So what will happen in this regime from point A to point B, the bubbles are basically which are forming at the bottom of or at the surface, heating surface, and we will see those bubbles, and after some time the bubbles will move upward from the heating surface. So those bubbles will collapse after some time, right? So the region where this phenomena is taking place, that the bubbles are generating from the heating surface and they will move upward, and after some time they will burst or they will just collapse. So the region where this phenomena is taking place is known as the nucleate boiling, and this region is represented by this curve from A to B, right? So from A to B we are saying that the delta T excess is increasing, like from 5 to 10, and the boiling heat flux is also increasing, right? From point A the boiling heat flux is somewhat here, and from point B the boiling heat flux is being increased, right? So in the nucleate boiling there is another region which is from B to C. So this region is between from 10 degrees centigrade to 30 degrees centigrade of delta T excess. So in this region we see that the continuous column of vapors, so during the boiling process you may have observed that the bubbles are generating from the bottom and they are coming from towards the top in the form of column. So this kind of region is known as the nucleate boiling, which lies in the region from B to C. So you can also see that this curve from A to B is more steeper compared to the curve from B to C. So the point A is known as the onset of nucleate boiling, ONB, which means the starting of the nucleate boiling or starting of the bubbles formation at the heating surface during the pool boiling process. So in the region A to B there is some sort of stirring and the agitation, right, during the region A and B, right? So this stirring and the agitation is actually caused by the liquid to the heating surface or the heater surface, and it actually increased the heat transfer coefficient. So ultimately we are just trying to understand that what is the phenomena, what are the phenomena that are taking place during the boiling process, and what are the regions, and ultimately we will associate the heat transfer for each regime in the upcoming slide, and we will try to develop and we will try to see the expressions for the heat transfer coefficient for each regime. So in this region A to B, so the stirring and the agitation is actually by the movement of the liquid, right? And if there is the movement of the liquid and the heat is basically transferred, so there will be the increased heat transfer. So from point B to C, there will be the large heat flux, as you can see, from 10 to 30 degrees centigrade of delta T excess. There will be the large value of the boiling heat flux, which will be due to the combined motion of the liquid as well as the vapors that is going to stir down the liquid, and there will be the sufficient or the large value of the heat flux from the heating surface to the liquid. So in this boiling curve, we have just seen that from point A to B, right? So the heat flux increases very fast, and because I have said earlier in the previous slide, this is a steeper curve, so the heat flux is very high and it is increasing sharply, right? Sharply, and in this region, whereas in the region B to C, right, the heat flux is also increases, but the rate at which this heat flux increases is less compared to this one, right, compared to this region from A to B. In simpler words, I would just try to emphasize on this point that from A to B, right, from A to B, the rate at which this boiling heat flux increases is very high, because this curve is very steeper, right? And from point B to C, the rate at which the boiling heat flux increases is less as compared to this region from A to B. So ultimately, the boiling heat flux reaches at the maximum value, which is represented by this point C. At this point, the boiling heat flux has the maximum value, and this is also called the critical heat flux, and it is also known as the Q max, right? And this value has a great importance in the design of the heat exchanger when we design the evaporators or the heat exchangers. So this point is very important, which is known as the critical heat flux or the maximum heat flux, right? So it means that the maximum energy is being transferred from the heating surface to the liquid which is boiling in that particular pan or in that particular container. So the third regime is the transition boiling, right? In this we have to see that the boiling curve from point C to point D. This is point C and this is point D. So the overall perception is when we increase the delta T excess is the difference between the surface temperature and the saturation temperature, right? So in the previous slide we have seen that if the surface temperature is 180 and the saturation temperature is 100, so overall we have seen that this lies in between the range of the transition boiling. So the overall boiling curve is saying that when we increase the delta T excess, what will happen in the transition boiling? The heat flux from the heating surface to the boiling will decrease, right? So the heat flux decreases in the transition boiling. So here is the description that when the delta T excess is increased past the point C, so the delta T excess, if passes this point, what will happen? The heat flux decreases, and it ultimately goes to the point D. So this decrement of the heat flux is because of the presence of large fraction of heated surface is covered by the vapor film. So the large amount of vapors are being generated if the delta T excess is in between the range of 30 to 120 degrees centigrade, and those vapors which are generating at the heating surface act as the film which will provide the insulation, right? And let's suppose if we have the heating surface and the heating surface is being covered or being insulated by the vapors are being generated, and those vapors are actually insulating, and that is why the heat flux, the boiling heat flux, decreases in this region. So this is the transition boiling, which in the actual case, when we design the particular heat exchangers or the evaporators, we basically avoid this kind of phenomena in our actual operations, because we are providing such a large amount of heat, and ultimately it is decreasing the heat flux to the boiling liquid. So this is actually the not required phenomena in the actual operations. For example, in case of water, the transition boiling occurs over the excess temperature ranges from 30 to 120 degrees centigrade, as you can see in this diagram. So this is a kind of the fourth regime, that is called the film boiling, as we have studied in the previous slide, that the film boiling is at the temperature delta T excess is greater than 120 degrees centigrade. There is the vapor film at the heating surface which completely covers the heating surface, right? So this point is the point, D point is the point where the heat flux from the heating surface to the boiling liquid is minimum. This point is known as the Lindenfrost point, and which is also known as Q minimum, and it is represented by D. Let us have a look at the description, that beyond the point D, the heater surface is completely covered by the continuous stable vapor film. If there is a continuous stable vapor film at the heating surface, so the boiling, so the flux, the heat flux from the heating surface to the liquid is at the minimum value, and this is actually called the Lindenfrost point. So what will happen, that after the point D, there is still increasing in the heat flux, right? So we have studied that in this region, the heat flux decreases because of the formation of the vapor film on the heating surface. So that's why the flux to the boiling liquid is decreases. So in this region, why this flux is increasing? This is because of the radiation heat transfer. So let us have a look on the description, that the presence of the vapor film between the heater surface and the liquid is responsible for the low heat transfer rates in the film boiling region. This is the film boiling region. Why we say that this is film boiling? Because there is the vapor film on the heating surface. So the rate of heat transfer is the minimum because of the presence of the vapor film. But the heat flux is still increasing after the point D. What is the reason behind this? The reason is that the heat transfer rate increases with increasing excess temperature due to the radiation to the liquid. Because for example, the delta T excess is increasing, and this Q should be decreasing because of the formation of the vapor film on the heating surface. But after the point D, it will increase because the radiation effects starts incorporating its impact, that the radiation heat transfer will take place from the heating surface through the vapor film, and then this radiation heat transfer will increase the heat flux of the boiling. So on the boiling curve, this is the same boiling curve, and this is a part of the boiling curve in which we have just mentioned that the point C, D and E, right? So this is a typical boiling process. In a typical boiling process that does not follow the boiling curve beyond this point C, right? So when you follow any let us take an example of the water. If you are boiling the water, so it will follow the boiling curve and until it will reach at point C. So this is the maximum important point that we have to see that at which value the Q maximum will occur. So the heating surface or the heating element that we have immersed in the liquid for the boiling purpose is actually heated by applying the electrical power. So when we apply the power to the heated surface, so at this point, so what will happen, there is the bypass of the curve, right? Let us take an example. This is the delta T excess on the x-axis and the boiling heat flux on the y-axis, right? And if we are increasing the temperature of the heating surface, right, from which the we are heating our liquid or boiling our liquid, what will happen after the point C? In a typical boiling case, the boiling will not follow this pink curve, right? What will happen if we increase the temperature? Let's suppose this C point occurs at for example 50 degrees centigrade, right? 50 degrees centigrade of delta T excess, right? Or 25 degrees centigrade at this point. So what we see that if we further increase the temperature delta T excess, so what will happen? The boiling curve will bypass this region from C to D to E, and it will just go straight from C to E, and then there will be sudden increase in the heat flux. And on a similar ground, and if we have we are at point E, and if we are decreasing the delta T excess, right, delta T excess from E to D, what we are moving? We are moving in the decreasing value of delta T excess. If mean as we are reducing the power of the heating element, so we are decreasing the delta T excess. So it will move from E to D point, and after reaching the minimum value of the heat flux, it will bypass this curve. And what is going to happen? This curve will follow from D to this point. So there is sudden drop in the temperature when we are decreasing the delta T excess, and there is some bypass. So overall, this curve explains that there might be the burnout phenomena. What is the burnout phenomena? I will explain the upcoming slide that. What is the burnout phenomena? Burnout phenomena is the deterioration of the heating element when we increase the power or when we increase the delta T excess. So in the normal case, so theoretically the boiling will follow the pink color boiling curve, but in the actual case, what has happened, if we increase the delta T excess instead of following this curve, so there is the bypass when we increase the delta T excess from C to E, right? And if we are decreasing the delta T excess, so the boiling curve will follow from E to D, and then there will be the bypass from this point to this point when we are decreasing the temperature. So any attempt to increase the heat flux beyond the Q max will cause the operation point on the boiling curve to jump suddenly from this point C to point E, right? However, the surface temperature that correspond to point E is beyond the melting point of some of the heater materials. So if this E point or the temperature of at this E point is above the melting point of the heating element, what will happen? The heating element will burn out and it will melt down. So this is the phenomena which we actually avoid during the design of the heat exchangers. So therefore this C point is called the burnout point, and the heat flux at this maximum C point is known as the burnout heat flux. So the most of the heat transfer equipment in the practice operates slightly below this Q max. So we will not reach at the maximum value, because if we reach at the maximum value, there might be slight increase in the delta T excess will burn out our heating element. So in order to reduce this burning out, so we will operate our normal heat exchanger slightly below the value of the Qmax value. If the Qmax value occurs at, let's suppose, 25 degrees centigrade delta Txs, so we will operate the heat exchanger at 22 or 23 degrees centigrade of delta Tx. So far we have studied the boiling curve and the phenomena which are taking place in different boiling regimes. So heat transfer correlations are given for the pool boiling. So in the pool boiling there are 4 different regimes, such as natural convection boiling, and the nucleate boiling, and the transition and the film boiling. So there are some different important points on this boiling curve, such as the Qmax point and the D point, the Lindner force point, and this is the film boiling region. So there are different heat transfer relations that are needed for different boiling regimes. So for example, in this case, the natural convection boiling regime heat transfer rates can be accurately determined using the natural convection relationships that are very simple and easy to determine. But the most important one and the second one is the nucleate boiling. For the nucleate boiling, we have to determine the heat transfer relationships. So unfortunately, no theoretical relations are available. But there are some experimental based correlations are available. The heat transfer in the nucleate boiling is mainly dependent upon the nucleation and the type and the condition of the heated surface. Let's have a look on this, the heat transfer relation for the nucleate boiling, which was proposed in 1952, and this is a kind of relationship, the boiling heat transfer flux in the nucleate regime. So this is the relationship that you are going to use if you are being asked to calculate the heat flux in the nucleate boiling. So in this correlation, everything is given here, and it is very simple and easy, but no need to memorize this lengthiest formula. So you will not be able to memorize this for the exam purpose, but you need to understand that this is the formula that can be used for the determination of the heat transfer rate or the flux in the heat flux in the nucleate boiling region. So the 2 to 3 things are very important in this formula. The first thing is this CSF, which is the experimental constant that depends upon the surface fluid combinations, and this is the enthalpy of vaporization, and this is the Prandtl number, and this is N. This is also known as the experimental constant, N value, that depends upon the fluid. So on the right hand side, this is actually the explanation for the value of heat flux, which has a unit of watt per meter square, and if you put all the units of all the parameters in this in the right hand side of this part, ultimately after simplifying that, you will have the unit of watt per meter square, which is the unit of heat flux. So to get the values of these constants, CSF, that the experimental constants, that depends upon the surface fluid combination. So here is the table which is given here for surface fluid combination. If you are using water and copper, so you have to use CSF, this value, and the value of N is this. If you are using benzene and chromium, you have to use this value. You have to use this value for your numerical problems. So there is the surface tension over here. This is sigma, and you can use the surface tension for different liquids and for different temperature ranges. Over here you can use it from here, and ultimately surface tension is a function of temperature, and after putting the value of the temperature, you will get the value of the surface tension, right? And some values of the surface tension with the liquid vapor interface of the water is given is here as a function of temperature. You can have the values from here if you are using the water. So after the nucleate boiling, curve is ended at the value that is point C, and the point C is simply represented by the maximum or the critical heat flux, CHF, which is known as the critical heat flux. So the critical heat flux value, or the formula, the heat transfer rate at the critical heat flux or the maximum heat flux, is given by
this expression. Here, this CR is a constant whose values depends upon the geometry, which is generally 0.15. So for different geometries, the value of CR is given over here, or you can use the values of CR, this constant, for this expression. So there are few important things that you need to keep in your mind, that the constant heat flux is independent of the fluid heating surface combination, as well as the viscosity and thermal conductivity and the specific heat of the liquid. But keep in mind that this constant heat flux increases with the pressure up to 1/3 of the critical pressure, right? So if your critical pressure is 30, right, and if you increase the pressure from 1 atm to 10 value of 10, right, so 10 is the 1/3 of 30. So if you increase the pressure from 1 to 10, it could be psi, it could be anything. Let's suppose if your critical pressure of the liquid is 30 and the 1/3 value is 10 psi, so you are at 1 psi. If you increase the pressure from 1 to 10 psi, what will happen? The constant heat flux will increase. But if you increase the further value of pressure, what will happen? The constant heat flux will start decreasing and it will become equal to 0 when the pressure becomes equal to the critical pressure. So the last thing is that the critical heat flux is directly proportional to the enthalpy of vaporization. So greater the enthalpy of vaporization, greater will be the heat flux. So the maximum value of enthalpy of vaporization is for the water. So for the case of water, we will get the maximum value of the constant heat flux. So after the maximum value or the critical heat flux, there is another point that is known as the minimum heat flux, which is also known as the Lindenfrost point, and which was represented by the point D. So this is the minimum heat flux which occurs at the Lindenfrost point, and it is of practical interest since it represents the lower limit of the heat flux in the film boiling regime. So there is one relationship for the value of the heat transfer rate for the large horizontal plate. This is the geometry, this is the expression over here. This relationship, this is the experimental relationship expression which is determined after doing some kind of experiments. So it has 50% validity, right? So the most important thing for the transition boiling, that the transition boiling occurs in the delta T excess ranges from 30 to 120 degrees centigrade, and this transition boiling is normally avoided when we design the particular heat exchanger or heat transfer equipment. So though no major attempt has been made in order to develop this expression for the minimum heat flux, because this is a point which is avoided during the design of the heat transfer equipment. So the upper value, which is known as the peak heat flux, and the lower value, which is known as the Q min limits of this region, are of interest to the heat transfer equipment design. So the next thing is, which is known as the film boiling, right? Film boiling occurs at the point after the point D. So this is the expression for the film boiling, right? And this is this expression was developed for the horizontal cylinder or for the spheres. So the values or the expressions, the parameters of these expressions are given. You have to put the values, and you have to get the value of the Q film or the heat transfer for the film regime. So this is a constant, and this constant is different for different geometries. For example, for the horizontal cylinder it is 0.62, and for the sphere it is 0.67. So we have already seen that what is the film boiling. That film boiling is that when there is a great difference between the saturation temperature and the surface temperature, and there will be the vapor film which encapsulates or which covers the heating surface, and there will be the radiation heat transfer, and we have studied that, right? So the heat transfer in the film boiling is the heat flux in the film boiling increases because of this Q radiation heat transfer, right? So the Q radiation heat transfer is given by this expression. So the Q radiation heat transfer is always less than the Q film, and the overall or the total heat flux in the film boiling regime is given by this expression. So this is the Q film overall is equal to the Q film plus 3 by 4 of the radiation heat transfer by the radiation, right? So this is the expression for the film boiling regime to determine the heat transfer rate. The next topic is the enhancement of the heat transfer in the pool boiling, right? So we have been studied extensively about what is the pool boiling and what are the boiling regimes, right? The one of the region is the nucleate boiling. So the rate of heat transfer can be increased by some phenomena, and in this topic we will see that what are the phenomena that we can incorporate or we can put, and we can just increase the heat transfer rate. So the rate of heat transfer in the nucleate boiling, which is the second region of the boiling curve, is strongly dependent on the number of active nucleation site on the surface and the rate of the bubble formation from each site, right? So the modification that enhances the nucleation or the enhances the rate of evaporation or the vapors formation on the heating surface will enhance the heat transfer in the nucleate boiling. So what we can do is we can make the surface rough, such as the presence of irregularities, right? So this is the solid surface, and if we make the irregular surface, right, so there are different bumps and on this solid surface, so we can just increase the rate of heat transfer in the nucleate boiling. So irregularities on the heating surface, including the roughness and the dirt, serve as the additional nucleation sites during the nucleate boiling, and the effect of surface roughness is observed to decay with time, because the surface roughness changes with time, right? So for initially the surface roughness is different, and after 2 years the surface roughness would be different. So it changes with time. So there are surfaces that provide the enhanced heat transfer in the nucleate boiling permanently are being manufactured and available in the market. So in the previous slide I have said that the presence of dirt and the surface roughness and the irregularities increase the rate of heat transfer, but that is a rough topic, or the rough surface. If we have the surface which is actually made of different tunnels and different pores, which actually increases the rate of heat transfer. So the heat transfer can be enhanced by a factor of up to 10 during the nucleate boiling, and the critical heat flux by a factor of 3, right? So the use of finned surface are also known as to enhance the nucleate boiling heat transfer and the maximum heat flux. So the boiling heat transfer can also be enhanced by the techniques such as the mechanical agitation. So if we are stirring the liquid during the boiling process, it will also increase the rate of heat transfer rate, and the surface vibrations. These techniques are not practical, however, because of the complications involved. So let us have a look on this diagram, right? So if the value of delta T xs is 5, so at the value of 5 degrees centigrade of delta T xs, for the plain tubes the boiling heat flux would be at this value, right? And for the finned tubes at 5 delta Tx, for the finned tubes, so the boiling heat flux increased, right? And for a special geometry, that is thermo XLE, and it will have the maximum value of the boiling heat flux. So these are the three different lines which represents the 3 different geometries. This is the plain tube, and in this finned tubes, you have extended surfaces on the finned tubes, and this is the special geometry which has different pores and tunnels and extended surfaces. So if we have the comparison of these 3 geometries at the same value of the delta Tx, we will see that the surface which has the maximum irregularities, pores and tunnels will have the maximum boiling heat transfer. So from here we conclude that we have to use those surfaces which have the irregularities and the pores and the tunnels on the surface, so that the maximum heat transfer, boiling heat transfer, could be obtained during the nucleate boiling.
So the boiling has been classified into two major classifications, such as the pool boiling that we have just studied in the previous slides. So let us discuss about the flow boiling. In the flow boiling, the fluid is forced to move by some sort of external means, such as by pump, and it also goes some phase change processes. So it is the combined effect of the convection as well as the pool boiling that we have studied earlier. So it has been classified, the flow boiling has been further classified in two subcategories. The one is known as the external flow boiling, and the second one is known as the internal flow boiling. So what is the external flow boiling? First we'll have a look on the external flow boiling, and then we'll see this diagram and we'll try to understand this diagram. So the external flow boiling over a plate or a cylinder is actually similar to the pool boiling, but the added motion increases both nucleate boiling heat flux and the maximum heat flux considerably. So we have already studied the pool boiling, right? So in the pool boiling, so the boiling curve is almost similar, but if we add some external motion, such as external force, so what will happen, the nucleate boiling heat flux and the maximum heat flux both will increase considerably compared to the simple nucleate boiling. So the higher the velocity, the higher the nucleate boiling heat flux and the critical heat flux. So this is the diagram that we have studied the boiling curves earlier. On a similar ground, this is a diagram. On x-axis there is a T delta Txs, and on y-axis the boiling heat flux. So this is the first curve, which is similar to the boiling curve in the pool boiling, right? So for the free convection, right, this is the first region, this is the nucleate boiling curve region, right, and then ultimately we will reach the maximum point, right? So this is the boiling curve at which my pointer is moving, is similar to the pool boiling. But what will happen if we increase the velocity, slightly increase the velocity? What will happen? The nucleate, first of all, the boiling heat flux increases for the nucleate boiling regime, right? So this is the second curve, slightly higher in the nucleate boiling regime, and for the second curve with the slightly higher velocity, the Q maximum will be higher compared to the free convection regime, right? So increasing or slightly increasing the velocity will increase the nucleate boiling regime and the nucleate boiling heat flux and the maximum heat flux. For the very high fluid velocities, what will happen? The boiling heat flux will be even higher. So the max upper curve will shows that the nucleate boiling regime, right, the nucleate pool boiling regime, and the maximum Q max value will be the highest value for the fluid which is moving with a very high velocity. So from this graph we can just conclude that if the fluid is moving with the very high velocity compared to the moving which is moving to the low velocity, so we can say that the fluid which is moving with the high velocity will have the high nucleate boiling heat flux and the higher value of critical heat flux. So the second category is known as the internal flows, which is simply known as the two-phase flow, is much more complicated in nature. So there is no free surface for the vapor to escape, so because it is inside the geometry or inside the pipe or inside the duct, so both the liquid and the vapor are forced to flow together. We will also see that the internal flow case in the upcoming slide. This is a kind of the internal flows, right? So there are different stages that we encountered in the flow boiling in a heated tube, as you can see in this diagram. So you can see that the variation of the heat transfer coefficient along the length of the tube. So the fluid is moving from bottom to the top by some external means. So for example, there is a pump and the pump is pumping the fluid inside the tube, and we are providing some sort of heat from outside the tube, and there is the boiling as well as the flow inside the tube. So there is the variation of the heat transfer coefficient along the length of the tube, and the boiling, the flow boiling regimes encountered in this tube under the forced convection are given here. So let us just try to understand these different regimes, or in the forced flow boiling. Initially, the liquid is subcooled, and the heat transfer to the liquid is by the forced convection. Then the bubbles start forming that in the bubbly flow on the inner surfaces of the tube, and the detached bubbles are drafted into the mainstream. So the bubbles produced from this wall are being moved away and then go along the mainstream of the liquid. This gives the fluid flow a bubbly appearance in this second regime, and thus this is called the bubbly flow. As the fluid is heated further, the bubbles grow in size and eventually comes in contact with each other, and they get in bigger size, and they becomes slugs of vapors. So up to half of the volume in the tube in this slug flow regime is occupied by the vapors. So this third region is known as the slug flow. What will happen in this region, that the smaller vapor bubbles comes into contact with each other and they will become a bigger in size, and this flow is called the slug flow. After a while, the core of the flow consists of vapors only, and the liquid is confined only in the annular space between the vapor core and the tube walls. This is called the annular flow regime, and the heating continues. The annular liquid layers gets thinner and thinner, and eventually dry spots starts to appear on the inner surfaces of the tube. This appearance of the dry spots is accompanied by the sharp decrease in the heat transfer coefficient, as you can see in this curve. So from this side there is a low heat transfer coefficient, this is the high heat transfer coefficient. As there is a changing in the flow regimes in the inside of the tube during the boiling process, the heat transfer coefficient slightly decreasing, and in terms of at the end of the annular region or at the start of the transition region, there is the minimum value of the heat transfer coefficient. This transition region continues until the inner surface of the tube is completely dry. Any liquid at this moment is in the form of droplets suspended in the vapor core. The inner is the vapor core, right, and which represents or resembles like a mist. What is the mist? It is the suspended vapor droplets in the vapor region, right? So we have a mist flow regime until all the liquid droplets in the mist flow completely vaporized. At the end of the mist flow regime, we have saturated vapor or the completely vapors, which becomes superheated if we further apply the heat. As you can see that the heat transfer suddenly increased in the forced convection or at the end of this flow regime, that is the flow boiling in the tube. Now let us take an example related to the nucleate boiling of water in a pan. Let me just read the question statement that the water is to be boiled at the atmospheric pressure in a mechanically polished stainless steel pan placed on top of the heating unit. As you can see in this diagram, this is a stainless steel pan and it is being heated. As you can see in this diagram, the inner surface of the bottom of the pan is maintained at the temperature of 108 degrees centigrade, and if the diameter of the pan is 30 centimeter, what you have to do is you have to determine the rate of heat transfer to the water and the rate of evaporation of the water, right? So you can see that the difference between this surface temperature is 8 degrees centigrade, or the surface temperature is 108 and the saturation temperature is 100, and taking the difference you will have delta T excess value is 8 degrees centigrade. So if you remember, the delta T excess is greater than 5, this region will fall into the nucleate boiling, and it is also given in the question statement as well. This is a nucleate boiling. So you have to remember that the temperature difference between the surface temperature and the saturation temperature, and based on that you can easily determine that whether the boiling regime, whether it is nucleate boiling or the convection boiling or the film boiling or the transition boiling, depending upon this delta T excess. Let us have a look on the solution that the water is being boiled at a pressure of 1 atm pressure in the stainless steel surface. The rate of heat transfer to the water and the rate of evaporation to the water are to be determined. So we'll take few assumptions that the steady operation exists and the heat loss from the heater to the pan and the pan are negligible. So we'll take few properties based on the saturation temperature of the water is 100. So based on this, we'll take few properties of the liquid from the tables that I have shown you in the lecture slides previously. So we'll take the density of the liquid and the density of the water, vapors and the Prandtl number of the liquid, and the heat capacity of the liquid, and the viscosity and the enthalpy of vaporization from these tables that is mentioned. You can also have a look on these tables to get the values of the properties of the water at the saturation temperature of 100 degrees centigrade. So we know that this is a nucleate boiling, and there is a special correlation is given in the previous slide that for the determination of the rate of heat transfer for the nucleate boiling, you have to use a relationship. In that relationship, let me just show you. This is a correlation which is being used, and in this is a special constant that is dependent on the geometry of the surface. So based on this, you can get the value of this CF and N value from the table 10.2, and after putting the values of these two constants and along with other parameters that you have taken from table A9 and table 10A, and this is a correlation that you will be used to calculate the heat flux for the nucleate boiling. So after putting all the values, you will get the value of 7.20 into 10 raised to the power 4 watt per meter square. So this is the value of the boiling heat flux in the nucleate boiling regime. You have to determine the rate of heat transfer. So you have to multiply it with the area so that you can get the value in the watts. Right, so the area of the pan is in the round shape, and after putting the value of the diameter, which was given in the centimeter, and you can convert it into the meters, and after putting the value you will get the area. And finally, in order to determine the rate of heat transfer during the nucleate boiling will be determined by multiplying the area with the boiling heat flux in the nucleate regime, and after multiplying and simplifying that, you will get the value of 5093 watt is the rate of heat transfer. Now the second is the rate of evaporation of the water is to be determined. So the simplest formula is Q boiling is equal to the mass or the rate of evaporation multiplied by the enthalpy of vaporization. So this Q is given here, you have just calculated, and the enthalpy of vaporization is also given by dividing the rate of heat transfer by the enthalpy of vaporization. You will get the rate at which the evaporation of the water is being taking place. Right, so that is the water in the pan will boil at the rate of more than 2 grams per second, right? And if you convert the kilograms into grams, you will just simplify that. So the answer will be 2.26 grams per second, right? That is the answer of the rate of evaporation of the water, that is 2.26 into 10 raised to the power minus 3 kilograms per second, or 2.26 into 10 raised to the power minus 3 kilogram per second.